The US has warned that all of Gaza is facing starvation. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made the remarks as he prepared to head back to the Middle East. He'll meet top officials in Saudi Arabia and Egypt in the hope of brokering a ceasefire and ramping up aid deliveries to Gaza. There has been growing unease among Israel's allies about the human cost of its war against Hamas, which began after the radical Islamist group's terror attack on October the 7th.
These children are waiting to receive a portion of food being prepared by volunteers in Rafah. This could be the only meal for some Gazans in days.
We have no option but to come here. We're from Gaza City. We have no money and we're living in tents. The charity's providing us with food.
As food shortages are becoming more acute every day, the World Health Organization has accused Israel of provoking an imminent famine.
This is completely man-made and it's avoidable. We need more food to come in. Simply, on one hand, because of the hostilities, there is no way of producing food inside Gaza. Secondly, there is a restricted access. Simply what is getting in is not enough. And even getting things around Gaza is complicated because of the level of destruction of infrastructure.
Along with accusations that Israel is blocking humanitarian relief into Gaza. Israel denies the claim, blaming aid agencies for the distribution. Only a trickle was allowed to enter Gaza City on Monday night. Famine is particularly looming in the northern parts of the Strip. People there are surviving in makeshift tents with barely any food. A new UN report says that acute malnutrition is accelerating here, where Secretary of State Antony Blinken expressed concern about the food shortages.
100% of the population in Gaza is at severe levels of acute food insecurity. That's the first time an entire population has been so classified. We also see, again, according to, in this case, the United Nations, 100%, the totality of the population, is in need of humanitarian assistance.
In the midst of mounting calls for an increase in aid, fears of widespread malnutrition across the Strip are rising, as Israel says it is still preparing to launch a ground assault in Rafah in the south.
Martin Frick is the Germany director of the UN's World Food Programme here in Berlin, and he joins us now. Welcome to DW. Thanks so much for your time today. We're hearing famine is imminent. Could you give us a sense of what famine actually means for the people who experience it?
Well, that report issued a last warning, and when we are talking about famine being imminent, that means that people have tried everything to survive, and everything they tried is now exhausted. People are eating fodder, people are eating grasses, everything that is somewhere available, and even that is exhausted by now. This is what famine means, and if not immediately remediated, we will see more, particularly children, dying from hunger in Gaza.
A consequence of famine is long-term growth problems. You mentioned particularly how this is hitting children. So that, in effect, means, doesn't it, that this crisis in Gaza now will be negatively affecting people's health, especially children's health, for decades to come?
That is indeed the case. We had already in December 1 out of 5 children being acutely malnourished. This is now going up to 1 in 3, and that is not a temporary situation. A child that is not receiving enough nutritious food in the critical time of growing up risks to be disabled for a lifetime. Shorter than average, but it can also affect the cognitive abilities of children.
What is the World Food Programme focusing on at the moment in terms of getting aid to Gaza?
Well, we are fully prepared to bring massive amounts of food into Gaza. More than 1,000 trucks are standing ready outside Gaza. We urgently need access, particularly to the northern part of Gaza, in order to bring the enormous quantities of food that are necessary now in. We also need access to the port of Ashdod, which is about 30 miles north of the Gaza Strip on Israeli territory, in order to bring these quantities of food in. Most importantly, more access points so we can bring in the trucks to transport the food that is so urgently needed now in Gaza.
Can the worst still be averted?
Absolutely, absolutely. But we need to act immediately. And we need to make sure that the food that stands ready, that the trucks that are ready to roll in actually can cross the border checkpoints much faster at a much bigger quantity, and also at border crossing points in the north that are still unavailable for humanitarian transports.
Martin Frick, Germany Director of the UN's World Food Programme. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
We can get more from Hazem Balousha, a journalist who was based in Gaza in the first months of the war. He's joining us now from Amman. Welcome, Hazem. What are your sources in Gaza telling you about the food crisis right now?
The crisis in Gaza is clear that it's very deep the war is ongoing. There is bombardment, there are airstrikes, there are people dying every day, houses are destroyed. But along with that, ordinary people only, and not thinking about the airstrikes, but also thinking about the food, how to secure food, especially in Ramadan. It's very hard for them to be displaced in tents in a very cold weather. With no food. Even the type of food is delivered is very hard, and it's not the usual that they used to consume before. It's more about canned food. Partly they have bread, partly they have vegetables. Even if it was available, the prices is very hard and very high for many people to afford.
Mm-hmm. Do Palestinians in Gaza believe that the international pressure that's now being put on Israel, that this will lead to more land crossings being opened and hopefully more aid being allowed in?
Well, people in Gaza, they're very desperate and disappointed from all the parties, Palestinians, international, Arabs, and every day that in all reports you would see that people are blaming everybody for the crisis that they are living in. They don't think that any pressure would make any change on their reality. Of course, it's important. I would say that the international pressure made some food to continue entering Gaza. There's limitation of types and quantities. There is another crisis, the crisis with the UNRWA, the crisis about the crossings and inspecting and scanning the trucks at the Israeli sides. There was an experiment of allowing some food from a gate between Israel and Gaza Strip in the last week, but with the airdrops, it's still, the crisis is there, but it helps, but people in Gaza believe that it's not enough.
Mm-hmm. There have been reports of looting, of people being killed while trying to reach aid deliveries. Can you describe how difficult, how dangerous it is for Gazans to try and get their hands on the aid that does make it into Gaza?
As long as there is no law and order in Gaza, Israel is destroyed all the entities that belong to the law and order, like police and others. There was no mechanism to distribute the food, mainly in the north, that the people were very in the brink of starvation and famine. They were gathering at certain points in Kuwaiti roundabout and Napolsi roundabout in the western side of the city, waiting for the trucks to come in, and it's very risky and very dangerous. where the Israeli tanks are. So they jump on the tanks with very limited number of flour to get. Some of them are killed, according to the reports, by shooting. Some with ramping and stepping up, or by the pushing and so people don't know. Recently, in the recent 2 days, that there was more organized trucks loads arrived to certain areas, but some reports that from Gaza coming, that the police officers were in charge of organizing and secure the trucks were targeted and killed.
Mm-hmm. Hazem, to what extent has the aid that has reached Gaza via airdrops and by sea, to what extent has that brought any relief to the people there?
Well, people in Gaza believe it's a gesture. We are talking about a very limited number of airdrops, 200 a day in a place that in open mouth is, and there is a deep starvation there. The people in need of food for a long time, and it's not easy for everybody. It dropped in certain areas. Not the whole people can go and jump, and people rush to the area. Who be there first, who can get, the others wouldn't, as long as there was no law and order in the area. So who's stronger can get. So what about that, women, children, sick people, they can't get anything. So airdrops wasn't the solution for the crisis, especially in the north, because of the quantities, the qualities, and the way of people getting it.
Journalist Hazem Balousha reporting from Amman. Hazem, thanks so much for your insights there.